Okay. All right, and we are recording. I am Yvette Dubell, and I am joined here with my friend Jamila. Jamila, introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Jamila, aka Dr. Battle, but in this setting, Jamila. And I'm here with you, a friend, also in my group coaching with Kellen. And so let's
Yes,
see.
Kellen brought us together, so public thank you. Thank you, Kellen.
Yes. And so, yeah, we are here as our first I guess, video appearance, just socially engaging and talking about. Just excited to talk about some projects that we're working on. And
Yes.
yeah.
Well, I'm really excited about the book you're working on. So we're going to start with that. Okay. Well, let's start with. I almost want to start with why you wrote the book, but let's start a little bit with your background. You're a doctor and your specialization. And let's talk about why you, since we already mentioned that you were working on a book, let's talk about why you decided to do this. Let's start with that one.
Okay. So I am a family physician and I am board certified in obviously family medicine and then sleep medicine and addiction. And those things did not all happen simultaneously. Along the journey, I discovered as a family physician, first in a solo setting, and then kind of moving into a group setting, that I wanted to specialize because I saw a lot of patterns. And so in those patterns, I saw things like the long-term consequences of uninterrupted sleep. And I saw that there was a lot of mental illness underneath the surface of physical illness. And so I actually started informally kind of training myself in the fields of sleep and mental health. And what that looked like was I would just do some moonlighting in those areas to learn it more and get some experience. And what I found is when you treat sleep, when you treat mental illness, everything physical seems to kind of follow. And become, so to speak, become well. Like I found that attacking mental illness and sleep seemed to be a critical piece at the foundation of physical ailments. And so that was intriguing to me because I always looked at health integratively anyway. And always like to incorporate mind, body, soul, and so that's really what led me to seek further specialization in mental health and in sleep. And so I formally became boarded then in those areas. Addiction then was really my way of giving back because I saw that was a stigma on addiction. Nobody wanted to really practice it or kind of deal with the patient population. And within mental illness, half of them were struggling with addiction. And so I really like to get at the core of the issues and talk about, help people speak their truths, because you're not able to get well if you don't start with that single piece and not speaking your truth, and trying to get the stigma off of addiction, because it is a chronic disease. It's not something that an addict can help, or it's not a character flaw. And so I am boarded in sleep and also in addiction. And so now I see patients in those areas and try to integrate the whole body, the whole person.
Did you find that changed how you looked at addiction once you started to really study it? Did that change how you looked at addiction or sleep, the relation, the how those two played together in a person's well-being?
Yeah, when I started studying it formally, it did change because I too, growing up with both my parents struggling with addiction, in fact, I thought, what was their problem? Like, I thought they were selfish. And I said, my
Mm,
goodness, like, this is a character flaw or something. Why can't they get it together? It's affecting their children. And, so I did kind of put the stigma there too, until I saw in the mental illness population that a third of the time, mental illness, what I saw was from an addiction.
right,
And, then underneath the addiction, oftentimes was a history of trauma or abuse. And
right.
I learned that their sleep issues would drive relapse. So it was really all connected. And so once I saw those, hi, Doc Swiner.
Oh, hi.
Yay! We were just talking about you and how you motivated me to write this book and get this story out. So, y'all, I just want y'all to know Doc Swiner she wrote How to Avoid the Superwoman Complex. She literally was the reason why the New Year, New You conference. She was the organizer of that, and she literally asked me to speak. And for the first time, I did not want to embarrass her. I was like, I got to do a good job.
And you did. And you did.
So that's why I was like, okay, I'll hire Kellen on officially to help me get through this. So Kellen initially became just a book coach.
Okay. Because you were working on that. Okay.
Yeah. So, but that's the patterns that I saw within the field of mental illness, that a third of the time mental illness was attributed to addiction at the surface of it, and that sleep issues often drive relapse. And so that's how I was able to put it all together. And when I formally started to study addiction, that's when I realized this is not a character flaw. This is a brain disease. This is a disease that literally the addictive substances hijack, right, our judgment. So we've got a reward section of the brain, or circuit of the brain, and then we have a circuit that's responsible for judgment and making good decisions and reasoning. And the addictive substances literally hijack the capacity to make sound judgment. And so it's a brain illness, just like diabetes is an illness, just like high blood pressure and coronary artery disease, heart disease, that's all illness. And so that's when I discovered that, then I was more comfortable treating the population. And it also helped me to understand why my mom and dad did the things they did when they struggled with their own addictions. So.
Okay. Well, we had somebody trying to call in, and I was just informing them that we'll take questions at the end. I've had some interesting experiences with people that I didn't know, sort of jumping on and not always being serious and contributing in a meaningful way. So I'm still trying to figure out how to handle that. So we're going to try that. So if somebody seriously has a question, then they can post it in the comment section. And if it's not somebody just goofing around, then we'll see if we want to bring them on later. Okay. So where are you with the book now? What's going on? And biggest reward, biggest challenge? Let's do it that way.
Okay. So the book is done. It's in editing. And right now we're trying to fill in some plot holes. I'm actually working with Doc Swiner on some of that. And Kellen, the coach, for helping me plug in some plot holes and really just keeping me accountable to getting it, polished up. But it is done. The writing is done.
Yay!
That's good. And then I have found a line editor that kind of will basically just look at it one more time and do a final kind of grammar check and proofread it. And then we will design a book cover and have probably Amazon Create Space look at formatting and printing. So it's really exciting. And some of the rewards have been to, it's helped me in my own healing to kind of dump all of that out and see it and look at it and go, oh my goodness, was it that bad? And it ripped my head off. You know, I would stop writing and then I would start to cry. And, you know, I'd be like, oh my God, I'd get angry all over again. And then I'd go, you know what? Look at me now, though. This has to be heard. Like, this has to be heard because, you know, this is our own common shared humanity. Like, we all have, I feel like, what life is about. You know, we have fears and we have challenges and we have sometimes difficulties with old scripts that tell us we're not good enough. And so, you know, I had to kind of get outside of my ego and kind of go, okay, this is, you know, a sad story, but this was tragedy that was transformed into triumph. And so I want to share that with people so that they can see that they don't have to, you know, tragedy doesn't define them and they don't have to believe these old these scripts, these programs that are deeply seated in their subconscious of not being good enough or somehow feeling like we're bound by shame or guilt because of what we've been through, and that there's a healthy way to release that. And so that's writing the book helped me release some of those, challenge those scripts, old scripts, and release some shame and guilt about it. And to realize, you know, it's about giving back and helping people see that this can be transformed into some positive, you know, creation. So.
And of course, you know, I applauded you for sharing that with the group when you shared during the book writing challenge, when you shared a lot of that. I have to stop saying anyway. When you talked about being liberated from the shame of the past and realizing you could write a new story, that I think is a very powerful message, because I think there is people sometimes fall into patterns of harping and being stuck. They stay stuck on the pain, and that's all they can never get past that. You know what I mean? Like telling the various stories of how things didn't work out well for them instead. And I think it's important to look at what it takes to move past that, and to be able to look back on that. I won't say necessarily that you go around like shaking the hand of everybody that abused or mistreated you, but in the sense that it's made us who we are. The things of our past make us who we are, and to be able to have some sense of gratitude for the journey that gets you there. Let's talk a little bit about Repair, Reboot, Rebirth, and what that
Reboot, Repair, Rebirth.
I'm sorry. Okay, Reboot, Repair, and Rebirth. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. The order absolutely matters. It absolutely matters.
And I find that I have to explain it. So you're fine. I joined in on a Periscope the other day, and I was like, Reboot, Repair, Rebirth. And she was like, what's that? I was like, a story of tragedy to triumph.
I love it.
I thought of it that way because I literally had to reboot. That was first step. And so what that means to me, just like with your computer, it crashes and you have to reboot it, kind of start over.
Right.
And so when I realized I was so painfully dissatisfied as a 14-year-old with what was going on in the house, and my mom didn't have enough courage. You know, shoot, I didn't even have enough courage for 14 years, but I was a child.
Right.
But, you know, my mom didn't have the courage, and I was just like, something's not right. You know, I know we're all born with a clean slate, and sometimes, you know, you don't know the difference between right and wrong, or from fear versus love, or compassion versus judgment. But I read a lot. And so by me reading, I had some discernment, because a lot of the books that I was reading, I was like, okay, hold up. What's happening in this book is not going on in my household. And then I had like little glimpses of opportunities to see compassion outside of my home. Or like I had little opportunities to see what love looked like outside of my home. And I was like, I want some of that.
Okay, right.
So for me, rebooting was about literally hitting the reset button, because my mom couldn't do it. You know, she would call 911 sometimes. She would have these little attempts to reboot, but then like maybe the cop knew my dad, who was very popular in the community. So like the cop wouldn't do anything, you know, that he would just kind of be like, oh, we got this call. And my dad's charisma would win again, and the cop would just go away because he was able to convince them nothing was wrong, you know. Right. Okay. Or my mom would try to run away, and he would find her every time. And so I was just like, this is really going to have to take some serious reset, you know, to get out of here.
Right,
right. You know, he had bars on the windows, the phones were tapped. I mean, so he was really, you know, very, just like an addict. You know, they know when there's a threat to their dynasty. And I was kind of a threat, because he knew my nose was always in a book, and I was always thinking, like, this has got to be something else. This is not the reality I want. So I was painfully dissatisfied enough to take some action. You know, we're creatures of habit, and a lot of times when you don't have a clear sounding board, you don't know if you're really in danger. And so I didn't have any clear sounding boards. I go to my mom like, is this right? And she's, of course, not a clear sounding board. She's like, I don't know, you know. Right. So I'm thinking, this is not. So for me, it was my books that gave me kind of a clear sounding board, actually, to go, something's not right, and I'm painfully dissatisfied with my current reality. So I want something else. So I hit the reset button, and that started with speaking my truth, you know, and saying, hey, if my truth is not right and somebody says it's not or doesn't believe me, I'm still going to speak it, because it doesn't matter. Something's not right. There was just this inner voice in my heart that would whisper to me, there's something better, that it's not right to live in fear and conditioned love. And so this is where I took that first step with speaking the truth, reached out to a friend of mine who had already suspected that there were some things going on, because I was wearing long sleeve shirts, covering up wounds. It'd be the heat of the summer down south. You know,
making me tear up, Jamila. Go ahead. You can mess up my makeup, but go ahead.
She's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, girl. So, but I spoke my truth to her, you know, in a situation where I was about to get raped by my father, and I was like, I got to get out of here. So that was step one. And then step two was getting the safety, you know, because you have to be safe before you can actually start to think clearly. Right. So that's Reboot. And then with Repair, that's where I was able to, once I was in a safe environment, I was in the foster care system shortly after speaking my truth and safe. There I was able to finally start to kind of think about what really happened and really kind of deal with the emotion of, being angry and how to tackle these emotions of shame and guilt. And oh my God, the family's now split apart because we're all in different foster homes. And did I make the right decision? And all of that, I had to work on taking that harsh view and changing it into more compassionate view. So instead of saying I'm unlovable, I learned through positive affirmations, through church, and to look at it from the sense of, you know what? No, I came from a really bad situation and I've had to survive. And when I was in that situation, these are my survival strategies. I read, I became numb to some of the pain, and that was a normal reaction. But now I'm safe, and now I have to forgive myself and kind of learn how to respond. It's going to take time. Be patient with myself and learn how to respond in a safe way. And so by saying, oh, it's not that I'm unlovable. No, I'm lovable. What it is I learned these techniques to survive, like not trusting people.
Right.
And now that I'm safe, I need to understand that how I learned to not trust people was a safety mechanism then, a survival mechanism, so to speak. And now that I don't have to be in this constant survival mode, I need to be patient with myself and learn how to trust again. And that's a process, but understand why you don't trust, not beat yourself up, and give yourself permission to still be lovable, to still be worthy. But you have to learn now about trust.
Right.
And when I was able to look at it in a compassionate way, that's when I was able to rewrite the story, to kind of change the old scripts. So that was the beginning of repair. And then once I felt better, that created power. So I felt like that power was a way for me I felt like I took my power back. I had the power now to harness this power and move it abundantly.
And so that's the repair. Is that your repair phase?
Repair.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. And then as I took the power and moved it abundantly, I was able I wanted more. I wanted to dance. I wanted to sing. And I saw that it was action. Just taking an action. You know what? Where am I now? Okay, I'm here. I'm safe. And what if it made me feel better to go sing? So I joined the choir. What if it makes me feel better to dance? That looks pretty cool. So I danced. I joined these activities that gave me a sense of hope and connectedness, and doing well in my classes gave me confidence. And you just have to it takes practice and building that muscle memory, So yeah, sure, I wasn't a great dancer at first, but you just keep building on that. And it was a release, for me. And so it didn't matter that, I wasn't the best dancer. The fact is I was feeling good enough to do something to repair, that power I had to want that power that I took back for myself. I wanted to move it in an abundant way. And an abundance for me was dancing, singing, doing well in my courses, wanting more, wanting to be a physician. So working hard. Right. And it's just like Michael Jordan. He wasn't able to do that dunk at first,
right?
But you keep practicing.
Well, I think you mentioned the dancing. I'm sorry, I want to just interject that dancing to me seems especially important when there's that history of abuse that teaches you to disconnect from your body, to try and find things that help you to appreciate and enjoy your body. And it seems that dance just so makes sense. Do you see that more now that you're a doctor and understanding what you do about mind body, the mind body connection? Do you see that more?
Yeah, I do. And particularly with, even mindfulness, creating intention, meditation. And I think that's why I've even chosen, I don't dance now,
You
but I
should.
swim.
You
I
should.
should. I
I
should.
told
It
you
is
about
still
you
in there.
all right.
It's inside. It's inside. I have right now chosen swim because of
Okay.
the mind body connection, because it's very meditative,
Meditative.
because you focus on the breath and
Mm-hmm.
the water and the movement through.
Yeah.
It's very rhythmic. And so that helped me to be more comfortable with who I am, my body, and feeling better in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like a healthy addiction. I wanted to feel better in my skin more.
Right.
So, that's where I talk about repair, is taking the power and harnessing it and moving it abundantly. And so then you start to see successes and you can ride that momentum. And you want you want to eat
Right.
better, you exercise, you meditate, things like that,
You
and
move
then
to a
you're ready to
stability
rebirth,
ball.
because yes, yes, yes.
Active
And then
sitting.
then you become a new centered version of your old. You're a new centered creation. You've rewritten the story. You're not
Rebirth.
this broken person, but you're whole. I talk about, even in repair, how I had split this inner wounded child, and I kind of what that means is I divided myself in two, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. And I had this inner wounded child who felt she wasn't good enough. But then I had this outside part that was doing all these wonderful things, dancing, singing, doing well academically.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point during repair, you have to reconcile the two.
Right.
And so I had to literally take the inner wounded child and go, wait a minute, you're lovable. You really are. Let me give you a hug. So I had to take my nurturing side that I had created from that power,
Right.
and then go back and actually embrace that inner wounded side.
Okay.
And so so with repair, your brokenness becomes whole when you integrate those two. And then with rebirth, you envision your purpose, you maintain that, you invest in a coach if you have to, which was a part of my rebirth, and you celebrate.
Right.
So yeah.
And you're creating like a new circle of people, it seems now, to join you. Oh, I had a deja vu. To join you in that celebration. I love it when I have a deja vu, because when you have them initially, I don't know if they're dreams or whatever, it makes no sense because you don't know the people in them and what, you know what I mean? Anyway,
Right.
you've had a deja vu. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes. But that's true. You start to attract energies when you're rebirth that are in tune with the new version of you,
Mm-hmm.
that new story you've written. And so I find that I have no tolerance for toxic people, places, or things now, because I'm a centered being and I'm whole. So I want other centered people in my circle.
Right.
Yeah.
And people who aren't right get right before they come up to you and, engage. And that's a wonderful thing. So I agree. I love that. Okay. So as we wrap it up, how can people stay up to date on what's going on with Dr. Battle?
They can, get on Blab when we're blabbing together, because I'm also excited about some joint ventures that we talked about.
Yeah.
So they can follow me on social media at drjbattle. That's my handle.
Okay.
For everything: Twitter, Periscope, Blab, Instagram.
Okay.
And my website, www.drjbattle.com.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. And this will be posted within a few minutes of us ending it, but I will retweet it again next week. And let's see, I'll upload it to YouTube this weekend probably, and I'll send a link to you or the embed code if you want to put it on your website.
Okay.
But I think this has been so much fun. I think this went really well. What did you think?
We forgot to talk about our joint ventures. You know, it's all about giving back too, Yvette. It's all about Rebirth is about giving back too. So people can come to me also if they're broken. It's not that I want you to come to me only when you're whole, but just know that
you got to be working on it. You got to be working. And that's what I think the difference is, right?
Yes. Yeah, you got to want to be whole.
Right.
This program is for when you are so painfully dissatisfied, you're ready to take action.
Right.
So you got to be ready. And it's not a replacement for seeing your doctor or your counselor. It is actually an addition.
It's a self-help. You're a self-help resource, right? That's how I see it. Yeah.
Yes.
And I also want to add to what you said. I just saw a cat hair fly up. Was that I did not mean to, I'm not trying to hate on people who are not there yet. So totally did not mean that. But what I meant when we were talking about toxic people is everybody's got issues. It's whether or not you're willing to be aware, own your issues, and do the work to fix them. And I think that's really what we're talking about. We're not, saying that you cannot step to us unless you're perfect. That is not what we mean. But you need to be willing to acknowledge that you are a work in progress and that you're willing to do your part. Right? You're agreeing?
That's exactly right.
Okay. So Jamila alluded to us having we have big plans for the future. Well, she's now working on her book. I'm working on a play called Women Crossings, and it's going to be a musical. That tweet will be posting in just about a minute or so. That was set up to post because I revised the website a little bit, and that sort of deals with some of my not so much my personal experience in growing up with around domestic violence or exposure to that, but somebody that I knew that was murdered through a domestic violence incident. But that became the seed of the play. But the catalyst for actually writing the play was about somebody that I held in judgment, and that my feeling was that there was not a place for her or women like her in the sisterhood. And that led me to a deeper spiritual inquiry about the nature of the sisterhood and what I personally believe. And if I believe what I believe, I had to do better than that. I could not just cast somebody out because she fell short of my expectation of what she should be as a woman, or in this case, it had to do with motherhood. And so from that, the catalyst actually came to start writing the play. So when we talked about that and I found out about Jamila's story, I was like, girl, you should let me help you make that into a play. We should turn that into a script. Because I feel that you are dealing with some of the same themes in terms of you came to a place where you were able to let go of judgment of your mother.
Right.
And in this case, I'm not talking about my mother, but it was somebody that I realized I had some beliefs about women who drop the ball or fall short as mothers. And the reality is, if they are not cast or they are still part of the sisterhood, how do we in our hearts make a place for them? How do we make that kind of compassion part of how we live? And so for me, working through that was writing my play, not my first play. It's the second play I've written, but the first one I've started performing or had started performing in front of people. And so your story, I feel like, is a similar theme in there about our shared humanity and how do we all compassion is a practice. When people ask me, on Facebook or whatever about what my religion is, I say love is my religion. That is what I aspire to. Sometimes I fall short, but I am aware of that as a potential, and so I keep at it. I don't give up and just say it's too hard to love you, and so forget you. It's like, what do I need to do in myself to be able to embrace you? And so the play that my play Women Crossings came from that. I feel like there's that same thing in your play, except it's not just having compassion for the other people. It's like, how do you get to the place where you can do that for yourself? Because ultimately the world is showing us who we really are. And that woman is showing me a shadow of myself that I would never allow or be able to accept. And that, is why I made some of the decisions that I made as a mother, was because I had to know at the end of the day that I had given it all I had to give and done my very best and not sidestepped things that I thought were important. I think that you're talking about the same thing, which is how do you get to a place of self-love and acceptance about who you are so that you can more fully embrace other people for who they are. And then you want to teach people how to do that, which I think is so beautiful. I don't know if I have the patience for it, but the future will be what the future is. But what I did say I could do was I can work with you. I can join you in your journey. And although my heart may not be as open as yours yet, I can learn from you.
And it took a while to get to this point. And I will tell you, part of that was realizing, because we all put our parents on a throne. And, when I dethroned her, after I was like, oh my God, I realized she's not perfect. Part of the healing is realizing your parents aren't perfect. Yeah. And forgiving them because, none of us are perfect. They are human. They make mistakes.
I'm still working on that, Jamila. Some things are easier to forgive than others. I adore my mother, and I still hold her up because she showed up every day, and I know that without a doubt she did the best she could. It's when I think somebody shows you something, it's like, really, that's the best you could do. That's when I find myself challenged. But I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to, have a more open heart. I'm willing to live with more compassion. Which is part of why I felt like this would be a great joint venture opportunity, because we have similar goals in terms of the kind of businesses we want to build. We want to build people. We want to help people build themselves or rebuild themselves. And I want to help businesses that want to be, force for good in the world. And it's like, well, you would be one of those businesses. So that makes perfect sense. Okay, so we talked a little bit about your course, and that will be one of the things we'll talk about in the next blab.
Okay.
So I look forward to that. And do you have anything I don't know, when do you want to do the next one? Not that we can be flexible, but.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you think the frequency of these should be weekly or monthly?
Are you up for that? Are you up for a weekly? I mean, I'm trying to show up every week. So I have to find some excuse, to make myself do it, to be honest. It's like I have to find a reason to show up, or it's too easy for me to not do it. So
right. I think that's maybe every other week.
Okay.
And then that way
we can have some time to think about what we're going to do in between. Also, I think that it'll help us to have maybe a productivity day on our own in between. And so that when we come back, we can talk about that. Because I think I have one scheduled Sunday. I'm joining somebody else's. I'm trying to get in the habit of jumping on these when other people are having them, but it's hard. It's so hard. It's hard to make myself do it. It's hard for me to go and just interject myself into somebody else's conversation, I think. So I'm working on that. So, okay, we'll do another one of these. We'll post it about a week or so in advance to give some notice. And I will talk to you again probably later today.
Okay.
All right.
That sounds good.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you next time. And bye, Jamila. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.